All right. Once again, thank you all for attending today. I just love the opportunity to speak with students. I was at the University of Bahrain from 2003 to 2007. I studied computer engineering, after I graduated, I actually did like the traditional thing. I spent like 5 years working at a big company, and I thought like that was a sort of normal thing to do. And then in 2011, I attended this thing called Startup Weekend, and that just looking at the rest of the slide, it just completely changed my career trajectory. Like I was actually pretty happy working at GE, and then at that specific Startup Weekend in 2011. I got introduced to this idea of starting a company and working with other people. I don't know if you're familiar, but sort of in like the 10-second summary, Startup Weekend occurs over the course of a weekend. It's like 2.5 days, and you meet up with random people. You come together as a team of say 3 to 5 people, and you come up with like literally a startup, and you work on it over the course of the weekend. And then there's like a pitch at the end, and yeah, we ended up winning first place, and that was just incredibly exciting to me. And since then, I've just been starting like company after company. I started, there's a bunch of these not on here, but in 2015, I started a payments company, which was acquired by Silk.com. And then I spent a few years working there, and then I started another company. And now, as of 3 months ago, roughly, I started Amal Invest. It's an investing app, and the whole idea is just to make the concept of investing simple for anyone to get started. Like here in the region, we don't really have a strong culture of investing, and the goal of this app is just to make the process really simple for anyone that wants to start. Now, I'll jump into the topic of today's talk, which is idea validation, and really, like, I was looking at some of the speakers that were on this before the past few weeks, and like we had a fantastic lineup of speakers. Honestly, some of the best people in the region. I just want to start by giving you an overview of what the like high-level process looks like before diving into the deeper question of how to validate an idea, like how to test if your idea is good or not. So the idea of idea validation is really about checking whether your idea is valid. Now, it'd be great if you could just walk up to your customers and ask them that, but you can't. And so instead, what you really want to know is, what should I actually be building? Okay, that's the main question, like the $1 million question that every founder, any person that has a brand new idea, they need to be able to answer this question from the very beginning. And luckily, the answer is actually pretty simple. It's to build a product. Like, what should you be building? You should build a product. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the talk. Thanks for coming by. But really, when I say a product, I actually mean two other things. A product that does something, and it does it for someone. And this is like absolutely critical. You need to make sure that your product does something useful to someone. So focus on the something and the someone. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Now, we'll start with the someone because that's actually the best place to start. If you already know who you want to help, you should really be thinking about the someone, like the people themselves. Think about the problems that they have. There's actually a great example from Bahrain. There's this company called Fish Me, and it was started by a friend of mine called Mohammed Tareif. And it's just an app that allows people to buy fish from fishermen. And Mohammed, his family was actually part of the fishing community, his father, his grandfather. And so he knew kind of starting that, he wanted to help that group of people. And so if you have a group of people in mind that you want to help, that's the best place to start. Start with the someone. And at the end of the day, like what you're making is not, it's not going to, fit everyone's needs. You need to start with like a niche, and it's great to identify that upfront if there's a specific group of people that you want to help. And then there's the something. So this is typical of like Elon Musk type ventures or Silicon Valley in general. It's like people have this idea of something that they want to build, and then they go after and they build it. And the problem with this approach is that you may end up like putting the customer behind you and not really thinking about like a specific set of customers that you want to help. But it doesn't matter as much if like your space is completely new. So yeah, something for someone. These are the two things that you need to consider before sort of jumping into an idea. So now you know what it is that you're building. And honestly, that's not even the hard part. Like many of you already have ideas. You probably have a ton of ideas for companies that you want to build. Any sort of idea that started, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this existed? Or wouldn't it be nice if this other thing happened? A lot of us have a lot of ideas. And the challenge is really thinking about where do you start when you have an idea? And that's the whole point of what we're going to be talking about today, is where do you start? What do you do? This is the real question. So I'm going to talk to you about, let's take an example here and say you have an idea for a ride sharing app, okay? An app where you could just press a button and a car will come and pick you up. You even have like the perfect name for this company, and you're thinking you're going to call it Uber. Now, the problem is like there are actually so many things that you could include in the app. Like here's just a list of a few of them. Like you could have an Android app, a driver app, a regular user app. You could implement surge pricing, a web dashboard. There's so many things that you could potentially implement in your idea. So many things, like you could literally spend years just building out your complete vision for what this Uber app could do. And so the most important thing to do when you're in that initial early stage is to come up with an MVP. And MVP is short for a minimum viable product. And viable means that it viably delivers value. So it actually delivers value to your customer. Remember, the someone, something, you want to make sure that you deliver value to that someone. And that's the most important part of an MVP. That's the main job of an MVP. What was Uber's MVP? If you think about like Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, when they first started, they literally had a text message. Like they had a number that they were sharing with people, and people would just message Travis. His name was Travis, the founder. It's like, hey, Travis, pick me up, at this location. They would just write it in the SMS. And then Travis would reply, on my way, and he would send someone. And that's literally it. Like you don't need, 100 developers working for you. You don't need like this crazy app. You don't need all of these details like surge pricing and, a driver app and all that stuff. All of that is extra. You need to focus on like, who is the customer and how can I help the customer? How can I help them do the something that they're trying to do? And so that's what you need to remember. Always remember the customer. He doesn't care about your app. I've seen this so many times. Like you get caught up, a lot of people get caught up with developing an app and people start using it and they have all sorts of bugs because, my screen's bigger than your screen. And then, there's this button that's hidden and, in landscape mode, it doesn't work. Then they leave. And it's like, you don't even know if the problem was like the app itself or like your idea, like the actual idea itself. And so it's always best to start like really small and light. And this advice is great for, a lot of things, but there's some areas I want to emphasize that this doesn't work for everything. So in some cases, I would argue in most cases, you can actually use this advice as is. And again, like the MVP is how idea validation happens. Remember, like you can't walk up to people and say, hey, would you buy this? Would you do this? I mean, most cases, like they would always say yes. There's actually a way to interviewing people to make sure that you're getting useful information out of them. And most times, if you just ask people, hey, would you buy this? Especially if that person is like your friend or your mother or whatever it is, they're just going to say yes. They want to support you. But that's not going to create a successful business. The last step in this entire process, after you come up with an MVP, is to experiment. Like you're not going to get it right from day one with the MVP. And that's the whole point, is you don't want to invest too much time, effort, and money into this MVP, because you're going to throw it away. Like, it doesn't matter. You're just using it to test whether you're meeting a customer need. That's what matters with the MVP. And so experiments help you stay on track. And really, I've kind of been alluding to this idea, but you want to always keep this in mind. You have to find a fit, like the right combination of the something and someone that we talked about earlier with the channel. And the channel is what I described earlier when I was talking about how do you reach customers. Like, how you reach customers is going to make a huge impact on the success or failure of your business. You need to figure out, like, from day one, how you're going to reach customers, and how you reach them will impact your product itself as well, right? If you're reaching customers one by one, like individually walking up to them and, you know, telling them about your product and selling it to them, you better hope that your product is expensive. You know, it costs a lot, it makes a lot of profit for you, because if you're hiring salespeople and, you know, trying to get customers one by one, it's not going to make sense if, you know, you're just earning a few cents off each product. And so the channel is really important, and it needs to be a key consideration early on in the product. So again, fit something, someone in your channel. And I have an example here. Like, the something is like the idea that you have here on the left: errands, food, taxes, discounts, delivery, transport, to our earlier example with Uber. The someone, you know, again, like, you get to pick who your customer is going to be, and you need to be very specific. And the channel, like how you're going to actually reach people. This could be in person, this could be Facebook ads, Twitter, whatever. And so you need to test out. The whole goal of idea validation is to test out the combination of something, someone, and the channel, like how you're actually going to reach these people. And so example here is, like, if you're doing discounts for students and you want to do it via referrals, then, you know, that's going to affect how you're going to make your product, and it's going to look completely different than if you were doing discounts for students and you were doing it in person, for example, or if you were doing discounts for expats and doing it through referrals as well. Like, change any one of these variables and you're going to have a very different product from the one that you have. And so again, let's recap the whole thing. You start with a product idea that does something for someone, and then your MVP is really taking away all of those complex pieces, you know, the extra boosters, the nice flashy signs, everything. Like, take away all of the non-essentials, focus on the MVP. And lastly, you want to make sure that you're doing a ton of experimentation in the process so that you can adjust and tweak your direction. So hopefully at the end of all this, you end up with a successful product. So that's everything that I have to say on idea validation. It's really just, you know, this concept of testing out this idea that you have. And we have a ton of ideas, and, you know, it's a great way to be able to, like, filter down the huge number of ideas that we all have, and without spending a ton of money in the process.